Those who follow me regularly will know how important music is to me, just to kind of keep my motivation going, keep my mood good, but also connect me with the people that I love. So before this next race, we thought we would have a bit of a laugh and do Desert Island Discs. I've chosen 8 tracks, but I think if you came back to me next week, they might be different. And this week, these are my top 8 tracks that I would want with me if I was ever stranded. Probably not on an island, but maybe in a life raft. So starting out then, I would choose Respect by Aretha Franklin. I just think that Aretha was the most incredible singer I have ever heard. Her voice was amazing. Her life was amazing. She did so much for so many people. And my guilty pleasure is being in the middle of the ocean, singing along to that voice with mine, which can't possibly even be remotely close. But when no one can hear me, I love to kind of belt out the same power as her, and I think maybe I feel just a tiny amount of the passion that she did. Next on the list is Giorgio by Moroder at Daft Punk. This track is purely instrumental, it's very Daft Punk, and it reminds me of my second mini Transat race when I had this track almost on loop in my ears. And whenever I close my eyes, I just imagine being in my tiny little 21-foot boat, just skimming across the ocean, entirely alone, looking at the stars and just hearing this music in the background. The next track would be Changes by David Bowie. I started listening to Bowie, or became aware of Bowie kind of in my mid-teens, when music started to really be a big part of my life. And there are so many great Bowie tracks, it's difficult to choose one. But I love the pace of Changes, and I love, again, the kind of passion of it. Definitely the refrains are good ones to sing along to. Next, I've got Go, which is by Public Service Broadcasting. And this track was the soundtrack to the start of my 2020 Vendée Globe race. My great friend Helena went round all of my friends and family. You know, even though everyone had been in lockdown, she got all of my friends and family to record the word go. And then she made a video with all of them saying go over the top of the Public Service Broadcasting track. And again, it just kind of brings back very happy memories, and I felt very loved and supported to the sound of that track. Next, I've got Primal Scream, Moving On Up. I've always been a massive Primal Scream fan. And my first ever festival was Glastonbury, and Primal Scream were playing. I was just 18 years old, and I went with my best friend. We travelled up in her orange Beetle, and we camped, and it was very hot. And it was just spectacular, and I think really kind of kindled my love of live music. Next, I've got Going Underground by The Jam. I think Paul Weller is a genius. You know, he's reborn himself so many times in so many different ways. And Going Underground is just a great track to dance to wherever you are, whether you're in a cockpit or in your kitchen. You can always dance to Going Underground. Next, I've got Get Off My Cloud by the Rolling Stones. So that was kind of the soundtrack to our childhood when we were in the back of the car, heading down to the coast, sometimes to see my grandfather and his boat, which was on the East Coast. My parents had a few tapes that they would play in the front. Some of them were truly dreadful, but the Rolling Stones was one of the acceptable ones. So Get Off My Cloud again is just it's a great track to remind me of those times and keep me upbeat. And then finally, my last track would be Where Is My Mind by the Pixies. I just love any big guitar sounds, just those sounds that absolutely fill every single void of space with noise. And I think Where Is My Mind is probably one of the noisiest tracks there is, and what's not to love about that. And also kind of with the new boat, because the boat is so noisy, you sometimes need some big tracks to go over the top of that. My favourite book is, the book I would take onto the island with me would be The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I would want to take all 5 books in the trilogy. I read and reread The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy maybe every 1 or 2 years, and I listened to it in audiobook form on the last Bondi, and it never ceases to make me laugh. Douglas Adams was a genius, and he was just so good at observing human life and pointing out how absolutely crazy we are. And even though the books were written in the 80s, they're still massively relevant today. Finally, my luxury. Ideally my luxury would be a boat. But I think maybe I wouldn't be allowed that. So my luxury would be an endless supply of chocolate-coated coffee beans.